We're kicking off Superheroes Week on Cinefix today, so it's time for us to drop some knowledge on you guys and share some lesser-known facts about your favorite superheroes. Well, they may or may not be your favorites. I don't actually know you. Anyway, here are 7 things about Marvel and DC superheroes that you didn't know. Probably. Let's start off with the surprising fact that Marvel and DC actually claim the trademark for the word superhero. And that includes just about any spelling variation of superhero that you can think of. They registered the term way back in the 1960s, and they've maintained the trademark on it ever since. The debate over whether trademarking superhero is even valid has gone on for years, but that hasn't stopped DC and Marvel's lawyers from sending cease and desist letters to smaller, independent comic book publishers for using the word. Hopefully they're not going to send us a cease and desist letter for using it in this episode. Next up, SpiderMan got molested as a kid. There it is. There was no way to segue into that, so I just went for it. The secret was revealed in a 1984 issue where we see a young Peter Parker is getting bullied, and then he befriends a creepy older guy named Skip. Skip ends up making Peter look at some porno mags, and long story short, Spidey gets diddled. Spider-Man's origin story is pretty well known, especially now that there have been so many movies about him, but not too many people know this part of it. And considering Marvel hasn't really revisited this plotline, it seems that they'd like to keep it that way. Speaking of penis, let's talk about the Hulk. How's that for a segue? Hulk actually doesn't have a penis, at least not in the Avengers. Jason Smith, the visual effects supervisor, revealed that they modeled every part of the Hulk except for his wang. The maquette, which is a fancy word for a scale model, is like a Ken doll. He has no junk. If you ask me, it would have been much, much weirder if they had spent a bunch of money and man-hours modeling the Hulk's peen. And it probably would have made the Avengers a very different movie. Let's stick with the Avengers for a second, because you probably didn't know that the interrogation scene with Black Widow had been written by Joss Whedon a good 10 years before the movie. Early in his career, he dreamt up a scene where a woman tied to a chair would flip over, taking out her enemy and freeing herself from the chair in the process. He even planned for the scene to include characters speaking Russian. See, Whedon studied Russian lit and language in school, so the Avengers gave him the opportunity to finally use a scene he'd been sitting on for 10 years. I guess he never could figure out a way to crowbar it into Buffy. Last Avengers thing of today, I promise. After all, it is the biggest superhero movie of all time and one of the biggest movies, period, of all time. Then again, that wasn't a guarantee when they were making it. The Avengers had budgetary considerations just like any other movie, so they had to rely on digital planes and other budget hacks. You remember that scene where Thor whacks Hulk with his hammer and Hulk crashes into the fighter plane? Yeah, that one. Well, you probably didn't know that that's the same plane used in True Lies, and the reason was the price tag. They were able to get the plane on the cheap, which is a good thing since Hulk completely destroys it. Hey, you know Superman, right? Of course you do, but you probably didn't know that he started off looking like this. The OG 1930s version of Superman was a bald scientist with telepathic powers, hell-bent on world domination, almost like a cross between Lex Luthor and Professor Xavier. It was a good 6 years before the creators, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, found a publisher, and by then he'd evolved to look like the Superman we know now, and had stopped being an evil dick. It probably helped him sell a lot more issues. Wolverine is another character who could have ended up being completely different compared to how he started. The Wolverine was almost a badger, which sounds a lot less awesome. Lin Wein was tasked with helping to boost Marvel's sales in Canada, so he wanted to base a character on an animal indigenous to the country. It came down to the Wolverine and the badger, and we know how that story ends. But that didn't stop other people from an unsuccessful attempt to make a badger superhero seem badass later on. A for effort, guys. That's it for today's episode of Things You Didn't Know, but I'm sure there are fanboys and fangirls out there who knew some or all of today's facts and are talking crap in the comments right now. And to you, we say,
oh, good for you!
Thanks, Batman! Be sure to subscribe to Cinefix for more true-ish things about movies. Thanks for watching.